Did you know men wear primarily what's considered perfume? Let's talk about that and other I didn't know before I started making fragrance content. What's up, everybody? I'm Garen Flowers. Welcome to my channel. I'm super glad you're here. I want to have a conversation about things I've learned since I started making fragrance content, promoting fragrances for TikTok Shop. I'm one of the top 1% TikTok Shop sellers right now. And there's a lot of things I learned that I had no clue about: perfume, cologne, fragrances, all the things. So let's dive into it, okay? The first thing is that there's different levels of fragrances, and cologne is at the very bottom. I rarely say the word cologne because cologne is just the lowest level of fragrance that you can wear. And I only discovered that when I started doing fragrance content. So I'm gonna pull up this graphic here so you can see it to try to explain it all. So you have different levels of fragrances, and it's basically dependent upon the level of oil that's in the fragrance oil concentration, okay? So at the very bottom, you'll see cologne. That is something like this right here. You see Urban Cowboy. It's an eau de cologne. This has the least amount of fragrance oil in it, which basically means it's gonna last the least. Like, it's gonna fade and die off quicker than other fragrances, okay? And I don't know if it's like marketing, or I think companies really tried to market towards men and towards women. And so an easy way to do that was to say women wear perfume, men wear cologne, and just market towards a specific niche, which, as we know now in the world of marketing and sales, when you market to a specific person, you do a better job of making sales. So from what I read was that they created this, when I say they, fragrance companies and companies that own fragrance companies, they started doing that. Here at the lowest, we have cologne. And then at the next level, we have an eau de toilette, which is like this right here, Versace Eros. This is an eau de toilette. So it's not a cologne, it's an EDT, and it has amongst the lowest fragrance oil concentration as well. Then next after that, we have Eau de Parfum. This is vintage radio. This is for men as well. And you see there at the bottom, Eau de Parfum. And parfum means perfume. So a lot of men wear EDPs, which means they're wearing perfume. Okay, here's another example of an Eau de Parfum, a perfume. Then the next level after that is Parfum, which is perfume, okay? So like YSL myself, you see it says Le Parfum. This is for men. And then Game of Spades Gold, this is a parfum, as you see there at the bottom. That is also a perfume, and it's for men. So men primarily wear what's considered perfume. I did not know that. I did not know the different level of fragrances. I did not know, basically there was different concentrations of oil in fragrances before I started making fragrance content. That is an extrait de parfum, another perfume, but this is for men. So I wear perfume if I'm throwing this on. Now, the second thing I didn't know, which is a big question for people, is how much do you spray it? Well, the first answer is it depends on the fragrance, right? If you're wearing a cologne, an EDT, or an EDP, you might want to spray a little bit more than if you're wearing a parfum. And different fragrances have different vibes to them. So there's some eau de toilettes that smell stronger than some eau de parfums. So it really depends on the fragrance you're putting on to really answer that question of how much you should throw on. Now, this might be controversial to some, but I think you should put on no less than 10 sprays, because when I go outside, I want people to smell my fragrance. I want people to know what I'm wearing. Now, a lot of people just wanna spray it 5 times just on their wrist and on their neck and then call it a day. That's perfectly fine. If you just want a little bit of a spruce up, you want a little bit of a little freshen up, a little small something, you can spray your fragrance 3 to 5 times. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I like those reactions from people where they're like, what are you wearing? You smell delicious. Like, literally yesterday I was out and the bartender was like, you smell really good, by the way. And that wouldn't have happened, I don't think, if I just had on 5 sprays. I did 10 to 15. I never do anything less than 10 to 15 sprays, unless it's one of those like really strong fragrances. Then it's like, okay, you're gonna hurt yourself at that point if it's a really strong fragrance and you spray it a lot. But the majority of fragrances I have, 90 to 95% of the fragrances I have, and I have a whole bunch, I put 10 to 15 sprays because, one, fragrances fade over time. So if you're out for 5 or 6 hours, your fragrance is gonna fade. And then also, it's harder for people to smell. There's sometimes someone's like, oh, can you tell what fragrance I have on? And I have to get really close. I have to almost put my nose on their skin or on their neck to smell what they're wearing. And I want you to just be able to go like, and you smell what I'm wearing. And a lot of times I'm walking by someone and they smell it. And the way I spray is I spray on my shoulders, because when you're walking by people, they're gonna smell your shoulder and your arm. I spray on my neck. I spray right here because, you know, as a taller guy, there's gonna be people right here. So I want to smell it on my chest. I spray behind me on my neck so you can leave that sillage, which is basically your scent trail. And then I also spray on my wrist as well, both sides of my wrist. Next up, I would say spraying your fragrances on your clothes versus your skin. So I would say a lot of people say spray your fragrances on your skin. I say spray on your clothes, and here's why. When you just spray it on your skin, you cover it up with your clothes, and I don't want to do that. I want my scent to project, all right? So a lot of people will spray it on their skin and their clothes, which is fine. But I like to spray it on my clothes so I get that projection. A lot of people say, want to stay on your clothes? Like I said, most fragrances fade, so it's gonna fade away from your clothes. The ones that do stay on your clothes, once you spray something new a day or two later, you're not gonna be able to smell that other fragrance. You're not gonna be able to smell it, so it's like it's overdoing it. And of course, you can wash your clothes as well. So the new fragrance is gonna overdo whatever you had on before, and you're just gonna smell fresh and good, and it's gonna project. And the reason I also do that is I put fragrance on almost every day. And at the end of the day, fragrances are safe, but they are chemicals. And I don't wanna spray chemicals on my skin every day. So that's another part of it too, is like a little bit of a safety measure. I just spray on my clothes, so I'm not always spraying these chemicals on my skin. That's me. And I know it's a little bit more of a personal thing as opposed to like a fact about fragrances, but it's important to share. The next thing is the breakdown of notes. This is a little embarrassing, but I didn't know what notes were. So I know there's other people out there that don't know what notes are. When I first heard the word notes, I was like, what is that? It's the scent profile. It's the different smells that are in the fragrance, right? So, you know, I always knew the words, I always knew scent profile. I always knew that it had different ingredients, but I didn't know what notes were. And notes are different levels. You have the top notes, the middle notes, which are also considered heart notes, and then the base notes, which is also considered the end notes. So for instance, one of my favorite fragrances, New York, the City of Dreams from Lattafa. This has top notes of cherry, black pepper, and nutmeg. In the middle notes, the heart notes, it has mimosa, cognac, rose, and muguet. And then in the base, it has cedarwood, oak moss, labdanum, and patchouli. So you have all the different notes broken down by those 3 different layers. And that leads me into the very next point. The 5th thing that I didn't know about fragrances was to not rub your fragrances because it kills the top notes. Those top notes are very important because a fragrance, once it settles in, it might change in the way it smells. Like some fragrances will change right away and some fragrances might change over time. But either way, you're killing those top notes by rubbing right away. So a lot of people, they'll take their fragrance and they'll spray their wrist and they'll rub it like that. And then they'll go like this, they'll put it on their neck. First of all, putting it on your neck like that, it's not gonna have the same effect because it's already been rubbed and everything on your wrist, but you already killed the notes. A fragrance is supposed to sit. A fragrance is supposed to do its thing. So you spray it and you let it sit. You just let it go. And it's gonna dry up in seconds. So I just sprayed it and it's already drying up. You know, at first, if you feel that little mist, but then it dries up right away. And now I can't even feel it anymore. So you wanna spray your fragrances, let them sit, let them thrive and do their thing. Do not rub them. It is just not the right way to do it. 6, layering fragrances. That's how you get that really unique signature scent. A lot of fragrances are great on their own. You don't need to layer them, like Untold, which is inspired by Baccarat 540. Baccarat 540, I think, is one of the most beautiful fragrances ever created. There's a lot of fragrances that are duping it, like Untold, which is an amazing clone of it. And both of these fragrances are very strong, are very sweet, and these you don't need to layer. However, there are some fragrances that are a little bit more low-key, a little bit more grounded, like this Coach Open Road. This is a beautiful fragrance that it smells amazing on its own, but I think layering with something else helps bring out a certain essence of it that is different and unique, and you're not gonna smell like anybody else when you're layering. With Coach Open Road, it's got a very nice apple and lemon and lavender and sage, and then a Sichuan pepper. So what I might do is take a fragrance that has a lot of pepper in it and spray on top of it and get a little bit extra spice in there, get an extra little something on there, a little sauce or something like that. So Coach Open Road is absolutely fantastic, but this is one I like to layer with, you know. And then like, here's a cherry fragrance, and here's my Lattafa City of Dreams. So I might spray my cherry fragrance with another cherry fragrance and just bring out more of the cherry in there. So I might layer 2 fragrances that have some similar notes of like a very strong cherry or a very strong vanilla. Or I might go a completely different way where I take a fragrance that has a lot of cherry and spray that. and then a fragrance that has a lot of, violet and lavender. So then you have violet, lavender, and cherry, and a little bit of vanilla as well. And you get all of those notes together. You get those two beautiful fragrances that just layer together and create your own unique scent. And that is one of the ways I get a lot of compliments is I'm wearing fragrances that are layered, so I create my own unique signature scents. Number 7, dupes. I did not know about dupes, about clones, about inspired buys. I didn't know that you could clone a fragrance. It's almost like music, right? If you sample music, if you sample it to a point, you have to credit the other people who made it, whether it's a beat, whether it's lyrics. If music, if they have like a little small something in there, I don't think you have to credit, but like if you use the same beat, a lyric or something, you have to credit the original writer or creator of the beat because they're the original creator. But with fragrances, it's fascinating. You can't copy like the likeness of the fragrance, like the bottle. And sometimes people do like kind of imitate bottles too, which I don't know how they do that. But from what I read, you can't imitate like the brand's likeness, but you can imitate their scent. Some dupes smell just like the original, the OG. I mean, 95 to 100% of the way. They call it one to one of the fragrance. It smells exactly like it. And then some fragrances will be a little bit of a derivative. They'll have the same scent profile, but they'll have like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 different unique notes. Like City of Dreams is inspired by a fragrance called French Defense. They smell mostly similar, but their dry downs are a little bit different and their notes are a little bit different. So I didn't know anything about dupes. I didn't know if companies could dupe. And so now you can get a fragrance for 30, 40, 50 bucks that smells just like a fragrance that's 300, 400 bucks. So you can get that luxury, designer, expensive scent with a much more affordable, low-key fragrance. I didn't know much about that before I started promoting fragrances. And then the last thing I'll share is using beef tallow or lotion or some type of oil before you throw on your fragrance. When you put on lotion or a tallow, an unscented tallow, or unscented lotion, or a body oil before you put on your fragrance, that is how it's gonna last longer. It's gonna hold on to that scent a little longer. Now I said spray on your clothes, but if you do wanna spray on skin, especially like wrists, I will spray on my wrist and my neck. So I'll put like lotion on before, and then that's said to hold the fragrance longer and stronger, so it'll keep that longevity. Those are 8 things that I did not know about fragrances, some embarrassing to mention, but not everybody knows about fragrances, right? Like for me, my parents didn't teach me about fragrances growing up. I didn't have anybody in my life where I really looked up to them and their scent. Now that I look back on it, I remember my mom had a unique scent and I see all her perfumes now in her room and I'm like, oh, what do you have? Oh, you have Flower Bomb. Oh, that's really cool. And I never paid attention to it until now. I really started in like December of 2024 and then I went all in May of 2025 and I've learned so much in this, 8-9 month time period of just putting fragrances out there. I've learned so much about it, but I didn't have anyone who talked to me about it. I really didn't get my first fragrance until I was in my 30s. Even then, I wasn't wearing them. I had these 4, 5, 6 bottles in my bathroom which you shouldn't leave your fragrances in your bathroom, by the way. That's another thing I learned. I really didn't have an influence. And now I nose deep into this world and I'm learning so many different things and it's fascinating. It's exciting. It's really cool. I'm like a kid in a candy store, just learning so much about fragrances. So I want you to comment down below. Did you not know about any of these? And is there anything else you want to add that you learned about fragrances that you didn't know before you purchased one or given one or anything like that? I want you to join in the conversation. Thank you for watching my channel. If you are not subscribed, I have lots of great fragrance content that I put out every single day. I would love for you to join my YouTube channel and just see all the fun content that I have and informational content. And thank you so much. If you made it to the end of this video, I appreciate you and I'll see you on the next one.